another fierce leader joins us for the balance of the program, talking about some recent events and upcoming events, but important issues for families and reproductive rights. Ruth Richardson is a former member of the Minnesota House of Representatives. She served from 2019 to 2023. She's a member of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party representing District 52B in the southeastern Twin Cities metro area that included cities of Eagan, Mendota Heights, and parts of Dakota County, Minnesota. She's a graduate of the University of Minnesota with a bachelor's degree in history and sociology, and she also graduated from the William Mitchell College of Law with a Juris Doctor. She previously was the Director of Programs and National Strategic Initiatives for Minnesota Organization on Fetal Alcohol Syndrome, and she was the CEO of Wayside Recovery Center. Presently, and that's why we've invited her today, she is the CEO of Planned Parenthood North Central States. I'm still going to call her representative or president. Welcome, Sister Ruth. How are you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's always good to see both of you.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
This is like a birthday present to me. This sister, I absolutely love her. She's got everything any Black leader should want to aspire to be. I'm going to let you take the question, but I cannot let you go like I don't know and love this sister right here. She is mine. I claim her everywhere. Okay, you got the stick back, Dr.
Well, I just want to invite you in, Sister Ruth, and talk about your work at Planned Parenthood for North Central States. And you recently had a Black Babies, I think, what was it called? The Black and Brown
Birthing Summit.
Talk about that, sort of give us an idea of what happened and what the importance is, and put that in the context of, the need to create more awareness about families and reproductive rights, et cetera. So I'm gonna just pass the talking stick to you, and you can flow wherever you want to go. My role will be to ask questions, to punctuate, and to clarify. So I'm passing the talking stick to you, Sister Ruth Richardson.
All right. Well, thank you. We were a very proud sponsor of the 5th annual Black and Brown Birthing Summit. So the Wilder African American Babies Coalition are deep, I call us radical partners with Planned Parenthood North Central States. And the summit is an opportunity to bring together researchers, to bring the people who are doing the ground on the work, so in terms of thinking about that day-to-day practice, and also bring together policymakers to really have deep conversations around not only where we've come, but like what we're headed to as well. And the summit kicked off with a pre-conference that was focused around home visiting, thinking about domestic violence and intimate partner violence. And I also think that it's really important when we're having these conversations about birthing and about sexual and reproductive health care. People oftentimes boil it down to this conversation just around abortion. Are you for it? Are you against it? Not really recognizing the full range of access to sexual and reproductive health care, and also thinking about the intersections, because with the Dobbs decision, it's been 2 years, right, since Roe was overturned. There were a number of things that were forecasted and predicted as a result of overturning Roe v. Wade. One was that intimate partner violence and domestic violence was going to increase. It has. In fact, nationally, there was 100% increase in reports of reproductive coercion after the Dobbs decision. Maternal mortality was projected to increase. It has, right? Infant mortality was projected to increase. It has. And so as part of the summit, we're talking about those things, right? cutting off access to a full range of sexual and reproductive health care, including abortion care, it doesn't just cut off access to abortion care, it cuts off access to cancer screenings.
Mhm.
It cuts off access to STI testing and treatment, and a whole host of other things as well. And so at the summit, we got to talk about what's going on in research, what's going on in day-to-day practice, and also reflected on the last 2 years at the Capitol, which was really historic in a number of ways in terms of a number of bills that were passed of importance, including paid family and medical leave, which I will just say I was proud to carry that bill across the finish line. I was one in the line of many that carried that bill, as it took over a decade to get that passed into law. The African American Family Preservation Act finally got over the finish line last year, and so many people touched that bill over the years to get it to where it is. So have to call out Rep. Agbaje, Senator Champion, and Commissioner Rena Moran. The fact that it took 10 years, over 10 years, to get people to say, like, hey, before we remove a child from a family, let's see if they have relatives or kin that can care for, like, should not be controversial, but yet, here we are. But also just thinking about the ways that we've moved the needle in terms of first steps to ensure we're addressing the preventable maternal health crisis that we're seeing in the Black community.
You can pass the talking stick to either one of us, or
I want the stick. Could I have it?
I have to give it to Dr. Bravada.
There you go. There you go.
He knows he'll give the stick to me too if I want it. So it's just we have equal access to the center of the circle. So
that's right.
So what I also want to say is, while you're talking about helping Black children and families, Black moms, I also want to say for us to establish and support the African American Child Wellness Institute. And through that, Marua Moms, which is dedicated to mothers who have chemical addictions as well as mental health disorders diagnosed, who are pregnant and parenting. So these women who are pregnant, they get prenatal support, just like she's saying, that they get support for their mental health, and how that the inflection between mental health and pregnancy, medicines they can't take anymore. How do they take care of their stress? How do they take the medicines they've got to take? How do they comply? And then, as you're saying, the increase in domestic violence, the increase in just disrespect of Black bodies, Black babies, Black mothers. How do they handle that? So because of her, even right now, we have one of our programs called, which you're honorary member of, is called Project Marua, with Marua mean in Swahili, respect. Project Marua parents right now are going to class every Saturday morning, 17 of them. And almost 20 of them, I forgot, we got 2 more, 19 parents coming to learn how to be better at their job so they don't have their kids catching cases in child protection. So there are huge ripple effects of having this sister in power. It's ripple effects of having her voice centered in all communities across Minnesota. She shows us, she tells us, she teaches us that we have a right to be well. Our babies have a right to be well. Our moms in our communities have a right to be well. So, sister, all I can say on behalf of all of those parents who will come and make sure all they do is vote. They make sure they do vote when it's time. And because one of these Saturdays after class, we're going to get us a bus. I'm just telling you now, we're going to get us a bus and take sisters to vote and register if they haven't. So the class is held at Urban League. I want to make sure that our listeners know they can sign up. I also want people to know we're registering voters right now at the Urban League. I want people to know that this sister right here, she's a catalyst for change. She doesn't have to do all the changing. She makes you want to change.
Mm.
That's what I wanted to say. So I'll give stick back to you, Sister Ruth. But I could not help but give that infomercial because I know you won't say it about yourself. I'll say it for you.
Well, and I'm so glad that you lifted up mental health, because we also provide mental health services as well. And when we're thinking about that full range of healthcare, and I also think about, I also carried the Emmett Till
Yeah,
Legacy Recovery Act bill as
that's
well.
right. Yes, you did.
And worked with Miss Deborah on
Mhm.
that, because really thinking about ways of centering healing within our communities, and just recognizing, we carry the trauma, right? We carry the trauma in our DNA.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And as we think about being catalysts for change, and we think about the important work that is ahead of us, it's that reminder that we all have to do that internal work too, to be in a good place to really support our communities. So I really appreciate that about you too, because you check on me in the background to make sure that I'm caring for myself as well. And I appreciate that, because this work, as you all know, is heavy work.
Well, let me jump in and ask you, Ruth, to give Planned Parenthood North Central States 101, because some people may have a vague idea or no idea. And I wanted you to talk about the vision, the scope, the work, so that people can be conversant, right? So that our vocabulary includes a knowledge of processes and systems and opportunity to support our community and our families and the whole question of our health broadly.
Yeah, so to just give you a quick overview of Planned Parenthood North Central States, we work in three areas. We work within healthcare, education, and advocacy. And from a healthcare perspective, we provide access to abortion care, mental health services, vasectomies, STI testing and treatment, cancer screenings. We do complex gynecological services. We just introduced this year fertility treatments, and we've also introduced menopause care, and we are getting ready to introduce prenatal and postnatal care as well. On the education front, not only are we educating parents and patients, but youth as well. We have teen councils really helping to build that next level of youth leadership. And let me tell you, as I'm spending time with these youth, and I see where these youth are in high school, and I'm like, okay, light years ahead of where I was
Mm.
when I was in when I was in high school, and it gives me so much hope for the future to see the level of engagement with these youth. And I love, Dr. B, that you were talking about getting folks registered to vote. That is something that we are focused on as well. And in Minnesota, now that kids can be registered at 16, getting them registered to vote early is really critical as well. And then also thinking about the advocacy work that we do, and we talked a lot about the really important bills that were passed. But I want to take a moment to lift up one other area within healthcare that we focus on. It's our research.
Mm.
And our research team has been very important and instrumental in truly being a community-led sort of research arm. One example of really important research that came out, one of our researchers, Asha Hassan, she, after George Floyd was murdered in 2020. And in the midst of the civil unrest and just the deep trauma and heaviness and everything that was going on, she was seeing people put on social media that had been exposed to tear gas during some of the protests. They were talking about some of the symptoms that they were experiencing. So, under her leadership, there was a research study that was commissioned that found a link between exposure to tear gas and spontaneous menstruation. And
Wow.
so, really understanding I think people don't often understand the breadth and the depth of the work that we do, and how it is so connected to so many things as that we think about as the social determinants of health that have those connections to building really healthy communities.
When your title is Planned Parenthood North Central States, what's, so it's easy to just think about Twin Cities in Minnesota. Talk about the broad geography of your mission.
Yeah, absolutely. So we cover 5 states. So Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska. In terms of the 4 states outside of Minnesota, um, pretty hostile to the work that we are doing on a day-to-day basis. So
Are
when
those all red besides Minnesota?
yes,
Okay, yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And so, and oftentimes people will ask me, how's it going? It's like, just fighting people on all fronts, like every single one. Um, but I think that in terms of our reach, we really reach people nationally
Mhm.
because with the restrictive abortion bans that we have seen pop up all over the country since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we've had over 100% increase in the number of people traveling from outside of our region
Mhm.
to get care here. People from as far away as Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, New Orleans, just understanding that there are so many barriers that are being put up to people getting access to care. And as I think about like what happened in Georgia, within the last week, and thinking about like the story of Amber Thurman, for example, it is
Tell the story so people.
yeah. So we've seen when I talked at the top of this around how with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, people forecasted that we were going to see more maternal mortality, and we are.
Mhm.
And Amber Thurman, his story is just one of too many stories, recognizing that when individuals are afraid to seek care in their home states, don't have the ability or the means or the time to travel to other states in order to get access to the life-saving care that they need, they're losing their lives. And Amber's death is one that the Maternal Mortality Committee in Georgia has said was a preventable death.
Hmm.
So we're seeing people right now die because they've had miscarriages and can't get access to get a DNC because people are being told that they need to go bleed out in their cars, wait till they're septic to come back into a hospital and get care. And I want to be like really clear because like oftentimes uh, people are not recognizing the ways that the stories behind kind of these newspaper articles, like this real impact of losing a loved one, and also the criminalization of Black women
Mm.
is increasing with this as well. Um, Recognizing that people are having miscarriages. Some are going to the hospital to get care, and they're being turned away from that care, going home, having miscarriages in their bathrooms, and then being arrested.
Hmm. Hmm.
that's the landscape that we find ourselves in right now. And it completely does not have to be this way. And whenever I talk about this maternal mortality crisis or the infant mortality crisis that we have that disproportionately impacts our community, I always tell people this is a manufactured crisis
Yes, it is.
because these deaths are preventable. The vast majority of them are wholly preventable.
Mhm.
So it is incumbent on us and on these systems to not only recognize that this is preventable, but to actually take the steps to prevent these things from happening.
Dr. B?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for bringing that up, that it is preventable. And I think the most troubling part is that when women become septic, I like using the word blood poisoning. Because it seems like regular people understand your blood is being poisoned. You get blood poisoning when you have unexpelled dead cells in your womb or in your body. And making sure that people understand that, because one day I was sitting with a young lady, she said, "What is septic?" I said, "Oh, now let me tell you." So I really want to break it down to people know that you wouldn't be walking around with a spleen still in your body if it had burst, or any other organ. And that's what people got to understand. And it just is really, really scary, because it reminds me of slavery. And
Mm.
the reason it does is that if they can revert one right, what's going to stop them from reverting others? What's going to stop them to saying, because they're controlling people's bodies. That's what slavery was, controlled our bodies. And now there is another form, not just of Black women's body, but everybody's body. And we know that from some of the previous discussions from educators have talked about the fact that the push toward uh, Planned Parenthood being shut down is so we can have more white babies in America. They don't care if we lose other kind of babies. We want to increase this white population so that they won't become a minority. But already fearing that BIPOC people are the majority in the world. Most people in the world look like us. The world is populated by more people of a majority cultures who look like people of color. So I'm appreciating what you're saying. I'm glad you're teaching what you're teaching. And I hope that more of our brothers and sisters who happen to be white, who don't have that fear of sharing the earth, will speak up and support what you're doing. So I give you the talking stick, sister, because it's almost going to be the last word, and I'm going to let you drop the mic.
Well, okay, so as a history
We got
major,
about 5 minutes, so take your time.
Oh, we do
Take your
good, but
time.
then she doesn't
Yeah,
have to drop it.
take your time.
but as a history major, you are talking my language because people really need to understand the roots of where we are right now. This is not new. And when you go back to the basic elements of this being about control, and after the slave trade was banned, and we know that people continue to break that law,
Mhm.
but what became really important when folks that looked like us were enslaved and we were chattel, they wanted to increase.
Mhm.
So they wanted to coerce, right, procreation.
Mhm.
And then you had these phases that we went through where it was, let's sterilize
Mhm.
Black women without their consent. And I think about uh, Fannie Lou Hamer, whose birthday is coming up in a couple of weeks here. And she talks about the Mississippi appendectomy. It was
Yep.
so common that they had a name for it within that space. And and prior to Roe being overturned, and I will never forget the day that Roe was overturned, and I saw hundreds of thousands of people take to the streets. We were, I was in the Capitol at that time, and the Black Maternal Health Caucus. We wrote an open letter. And
Mm.
we wrote an open letter because we wanted to remind people that before Roe was overturned, this was a really unjust landscape. Roe was leaving a lot of folks behind. And we never saw the level of turnout when you think about the preventable deaths that we see. Because when we see nationally that Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from a pregnancy related cause, and then you look around some of the states that Planned Parenthood is in, that I'm responsible for, in Iowa, 6 times more likely to die from a pregnancy related cause, which really shows you that in the states with the most restrictive abortion bans, we see the worst health outcomes. And so I want to lift up that history piece, and what you talked about. It all boils down to control.
Hmm.
This is all about control. It always has been.
And so let me have you sit with that for a second, Sister Ruth and Dr. B. What then is our obligation? What then is our strategy and our path? I think part of this has to be educating ourselves, equipping our own people with a vocabulary that allows us to decipher, decode, and to actually create a new narrative, a new story, a new vision, words that emanate from our sense of justice, dignity, our sense of purpose, and the divinity that we represent, our commitment to all humanity. What
Yes.
can we do to continue to propagate, to engender, awareness in and among our people, believing that that foundation really motivates the all?
Yes, education is a key part of that. And next year's Black and Brown Birthing Summit is going to be held on September 17th through the 19th. So folks should get that on their calendar, because education is key. And to Dr. B's point, also equipping people with the language to really understand what is at stake. And education is a key component of it, but the research is also key as well, because you will hear people tell you all the time, you cannot solve for things that you are not measuring. So if you don't know what truly is going on, you're not in a place to really be able to solve. And so it's also going to be about breaking down the silos, because right now there are deep silos between who's doing the work every day within community, between the research, like who's doing the research, because who gets to decide what the questions are that you're researching? Because if they're not done in collaboration with community, you're probably asking the wrong questions. And then also thinking about how that connects to the policy, and really thinking about how we are equipping people to show up in spaces that they historically have not shown up at, right? Maybe it's testifying, getting people prepared to testify at the Capitol around issues that are very important to them, teaching them about the process of how bills are made. And getting bills passed and getting great policy in place is wonderful, but it's only the first step. There also has to be the act of community holding people accountable, because because you pass a bill, but then people implement those bills. And if you are not paying close attention to how they are implementing those bills,
They won't be.
they either won't be, or they'll go off track in terms of what the original intent of those bills were. And then it's also important to think about the fact that within one election, people can be trying to change things. When I was in the House, there was a lot of work that I did around ending the push out of our students in schools. There are people who are now trying to undo all of that work. So it's that important piece that passing the bill is a great first step, but it's the obligation of community to continue to show up and to continue to have these dialogues, these education, and to also hold folks accountable.
I heard a report yesterday, I think on either Sirius or some other place I listened to, but it was a reference to a statement by Coretta Scott King, who said that, the gains we have made are not permanent. And if we don't stay engaged, then we will lose them and lose them more quickly than, the effort it took to gain them. So the challenge is to understand that transformation is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing,
That's right.
forever. And it's a way of being and knowing that's different.
That's right.
Freedom is won in every generation, right? It's our obligation to hold our place in that link of
Dr.
freedom.
B, final word is yours.
I guess the final word is, once again, I believe in the power of our voices collectively. I believe that today, coming here, bringing it, Sister Ruth, I'm telling you, I believe this is the year of the Black woman, to show the world how to be, how we be healthy, how we be strong and successful. And in that, I say thank you again for bringing your whole self to everything you do. And we will say thank you to everybody today who joined us on this most glorious Black woman healing circle. I'm putting this out everywhere because you showed up. So we'll drop the mic.
All right. Take care. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland, the Healing Circle. We'll see you next time. Take care. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Ruth.